Let me tell you something that surprises a lot of new owner-operators. 500,000 miles does not automatically make a Freightliner Cascadia an old truck. I have seen trucks with 500,000 miles that still felt tight, pulled strong, held oil pressure, and went to work every morning without drama. And I have seen Cascadias with less than half that mileage that were already becoming financial disasters. Same badge on the hood. Sometimes the same engine. Completely different outcome. And the difference usually was not some miracle additive, some secret engine modification, or a mechanic charging $5,000 for preventative work. It was what happened during the hundreds of thousands of ordinary miles before the big repair ever had a chance to happen. So today, I am going to walk you through the habits that give a Freightliner Cascadia the best chance of reaching 500,000 miles without the kind of preventable major repairs that can destroy an owner-operator's month. And I want to be clear about one thing immediately. Nobody can guarantee that a truck will reach 500,000 miles without a major component failing. Parts fail, sensors fail, after-treatment systems fail, water pumps fail, turbos can fail. Sometimes a perfectly maintained truck simply gets unlucky. The goal here is different. The goal is to stop causing the failures yourself. I am going to focus heavily on DD15-powered Cascadias, because that is a combination many drivers know well. If your Cascadia has a different Detroit engine or a Cummins, always follow the maintenance requirements for your exact engine, transmission, model year, and duty cycle. With that said, let's start with the mistake that ruins more high-mileage plans than almost anything else. Rule number 1. Stop treating the oil change interval like a competition. There is a strange thing that happens in trucking. Some drivers almost brag about how far they stretch their oil. I went 40,000. Well, I went 50. That is not an achievement if the oil spent the last 10,000 miles carrying soot, fuel contamination, oxidation products, and wear metals through a very expensive engine. Your oil does far more than lubricate bearings. It helps control heat. It carries contamination toward the filter. It protects the turbocharger. It protects cam surfaces. It protects extremely tight clearances that become less forgiving as mileage rises. And here is the part that matters. Two Cascadias can travel the exact same mileage and put completely different stress on their oil. One spends most of its life cruising steady interstate miles. The other idles overnight, crawls through traffic, pulls heavy loads through mountains, performs frequent regens, and works through extreme heat. Same odometer mileage, different engine life. Follow the Detroit or engine manufacturer's interval for your specific duty cycle, and if you are trying to stretch intervals, use oil analysis instead of guessing. Oil analysis can tell you things an odometer cannot. Fuel dilution, coolant contamination, wear metals, soot, viscosity changes. That little sample can sometimes warn you that something ugly is beginning, long before your dashboard knows anything about it. And while we are talking oil, check the level. Not once every 3 months. Regularly. A diesel engine that suddenly starts consuming more oil is trying to tell you something. Your job is to notice before the message becomes a repair bill. Rule number 2. Use the correct oil, not the oil somebody at the truck stop swears by. Truck stop parking lots have produced some of the greatest mechanical stories ever told. They have also produced some terrible maintenance advice. Do not choose engine oil because your friend has run the same viscosity since 1997. Your modern DD15 is not his 1997 engine. Use an oil meeting the specifications approved for your engine and operating conditions, and understand what the viscosity number actually means. A 5W40 and a 15W40 do not behave the same when the engine is cold, even though both are 40-weight oils at operating temperature. Cold climate, hot climate, starting conditions, engine requirements, those things matter. The expensive mistake is deciding that thicker automatically means better protection. It does not work that way. Correct oil protects the engine. Wrong assumptions protect nobody. Rule number 3. Never get lazy about fuel filters and the water separator. A modern diesel fuel system works at enormous pressures with extremely precise components, and those components do not enjoy dirt. They really do not enjoy water, yet fuel filtration is one of those maintenance jobs people stretch because the truck still runs normally. That is the trap. A restriction does not always announce itself dramatically. Contamination does not always give you a warning before damage begins. Drain and inspect the water separator as required. Replace fuel filters according to the proper service schedule, and pay attention to what comes out of them. If you suddenly start seeing unusual contamination or water, do not just replace the filter and forget the evidence. Ask why. Bad fuel? Storage problem? Tank contamination? Something entering during fueling? The filter is not merely a disposable part. Sometimes it is a report card on what is happening upstream. A fuel filter costs very little compared with the fuel system components it is protecting. That is where preventive maintenance starts making financial sense. Rule number 4, treat the cooling system like part of the engine, because it is. A lot of drivers think about coolant in only 2 situations: when they see a leak, and when the temperature gauge gets frightening. By then, you are already late. Coolant has several jobs. It controls temperature. It protects metal from corrosion. It protects seals and cooling system components. And its chemistry does not remain perfect forever. Check coolant level when the engine is cold, and according to the manufacturer's procedure. Inspect for dried residue around hose connections. Look around the reservoir. Look around the radiator area. Look around the water pump area. Check hoses for swelling, rubbing, cracking, or obvious deterioration, and use the correct coolant specification. Do not start mixing random coolants because 2 bottles happen to look similar. Color is not a reliable chemistry specification. I would rather spend 20 minutes verifying the correct coolant than spend 2 days discovering what overheating can do to an expensive diesel engine. And if your Cascadia starts running a little hotter than it normally does under the same load and weather conditions, pay attention. Machines develop patterns. You should know yours. Rule number 5. Learn how your after-treatment system behaves before it starts begging for help. This one separates modern truck ownership from old-school diesel ownership. DPF, DOC, SCR, DEF, sensors, regeneration, all of it adds complexity. And pretending that complexity does not exist will not make it disappear. One of the smartest things a Cascadia owner can do is learn what normal regeneration behavior looks like on his exact truck. How frequently is it happening? Are regens becoming noticeably more frequent? Is the truck struggling to complete them? Are you seeing repeated warnings? Has fuel economy changed? Do not immediately assume every after-treatment warning means you need thousands of dollars in parts. But do not keep driving for weeks pretending the warning does not exist either. A small underlying problem can make the after-treatment system work much harder. Temperature sensor issue, fuel problem, air problem, engine problem, excessive soot production. The emission system is downstream from the engine. Sometimes it is the victim, not the criminal. And this is where good diagnostics saves money. Do not keep clearing codes and hoping they get embarrassed and stop coming back. Read them, record them, diagnose the cause. A warning light is information. Use it while the truck is still moving under its own power. Rule number 6. Excessive idling is mileage your odometer never shows you. This is one of my favorite things to explain to drivers because it changes how they think about truck age. Imagine 2 Cascadias. Both show 400,000 miles. Truck A spent its life moving freight. Truck B spent thousands upon thousands of hours sitting still with the engine running. Are those engines equally used? Of course not. The odometer cannot tell the whole story. Engine hours matter. Idle hours matter. Long periods of idling can contribute to fuel consumption, after-treatment loading, deposit formation, and wear that does not appear as road mileage. Sometimes idling is necessary. Weather. Operational needs. Safety. There are real reasons, but unnecessary idling should not become a lifestyle simply because diesel fuel feels cheaper than replacing parts. If your operation makes an APU or another idle reduction strategy worthwhile, do the math. Think in engine hours, not just miles. Because that DD15 does not know whether the truck is traveling 70 miles per hour or sitting behind a warehouse. If the crankshaft is turning, the engine is working. Rule number 7. Stop abusing a cold drivetrain. You start the truck on a freezing morning. Oil is cold. Transmission fluid is cold. Differential lubricant is cold. Everything is thicker than it will be once the truck is operating normally. This does not mean you need to sit there idling for half the morning, but it also does not mean you should fire the engine and immediately demand maximum load. Give the system appropriate startup time according to the manufacturer's recommendations, then drive moderately while everything comes up to operating temperature. Easy throttle, reasonable load, no unnecessary abuse. The same idea applies after a hard pull. If you have just dragged a heavy load up a long grade and everything is hot, do not treat the engine like a light switch without considering the manufacturer's shutdown guidance. Modern turbochargers and lubrication systems are far better than what we had decades ago, but heat still exists. Oil still protects bearings. Mechanical sympathy is free. Use some. Rule number 8. Inspect the charge air system before blaming the turbo. A truck loses power. Fuel economy drops. Maybe you hear something different under boost. And immediately somebody says the most expensive word possible. turbo, maybe. But before you condemn a turbocharger, inspect the system carrying that compressed air. Boots, clamps, charge air piping, connections, cooler. Look for oil residue where it should not be accumulating. Look for loose clamps. Look for rubbed hoses. Listen for boost leaks. A small leak can make the engine work harder to deliver the airflow it expects. The driver notices weak performance, the engine compensates, fuel economy suffers, and somebody eventually starts throwing expensive parts at a problem that might have begun with a connection. This is one of the habits I want you to develop. Before replacing the expensive component, inspect everything around it. That rule works on almost every machine ever built. Rule number 9. Your air filter should be managed by condition and specification, not parking lot mythology. Diesel engines move tremendous amounts of air. The air filter exists because dust entering that engine is not harmless. It becomes abrasive contamination. But there is another mistake. Drivers sometimes pull filters out constantly, bang them around, blow them aggressively with shop air, or reinstall damaged filters because they think they are saving $20. Be careful. Some heavy-duty filter designs and manufacturers specifically warn against improper cleaning because you can damage the media and create paths for contamination. Follow the filter manufacturer's guidance. Watch the restriction indicator where equipped. Inspect the housing and seals. And make sure everything downstream of the filter is actually sealed. A brand new filter inside a housing that is sucking dirty air through a loose connection is not protecting much. Clean air is one of the cheapest ingredients in a long-lived engine. Rule number 10. Battery cables and grounds deserve far more respect than they get. Modern Cascadias are computers with wheels and a diesel engine attached. Voltage matters. Ground quality matters. Connection quality matters. Corroded battery terminals and weak grounds can create some of the strangest symptoms you will ever chase. Slow cranking, intermittent faults, module communication problems, random warnings, charging complaints, sensor behavior that makes no sense. Before you start replacing expensive electronic components, inspect the foundation of the electrical system. Battery condition, connections, ground straps, cable condition. Charging performance. Look for corrosion. Look for looseness. Look for damaged insulation. A 20-minute electrical inspection can occasionally save hours of hunting ghosts. And if you ever hear somebody say, "It is probably just a sensor," remember this. Sensors need stable electricity to tell the truth. Rule number 11. Maintain the transmission and driveline before they start making noise. The engine gets all the attention because it is the star of the show. Meanwhile, the transmission, differentials, universal joints, drive shaft components, and wheel ends are underneath doing the work. Whether your Cascadia uses a Detroit automated transmission or another transmission configuration, follow its exact service requirements. Correct lubricant, correct interval, correct procedure, inspect for leaks, watch for changes in shift quality, pay attention to vibration, pay attention to new noises under load. A vibration you ignore for 6 months does not become cheaper because you got used to hearing it. And grease points matter where applicable. The truck does not care that you were busy. Metal only understands lubrication. Rule number 12. Tire pressure and alignment are mechanical maintenance, not just tire maintenance. This one costs people money in several different ways at once. Incorrect tire pressure can hurt tire life. Poor alignment can destroy expensive rubber. And rolling resistance affects how much work the truck has to do to move the load. Inspect pressure properly. Watch tread wear. Do not merely look at the tire and decide it looks fine. Read the wear pattern. One shoulder wearing faster, feathering, irregular wear, that is information. A tire can tell you that something in the alignment or suspension needs attention before the steering wheel ever starts shaking. And here is the money part. The Cascadia was designed around aerodynamic efficiency. There is not much sense paying for an aerodynamic truck while forcing it to drag badly maintained tires down the interstate. Rule number 13. Fix small air leaks before they become your personality. You shut the truck down, you hear that familiar hiss, and you tell yourself, "I'll get to it." 3 months later, the hiss is part of the truck. No. Air systems operate brakes, suspension components, and other systems depending on configuration. Leaks deserve diagnosis. Watch pressure build time. Listen when parked. Inspect lines and fittings. Pay attention to abnormal compressor cycling. Do not crawl underneath an unsupported air suspension truck, assuming it cannot move. Properly secure and support the vehicle before working underneath. That safety point is not negotiable. The cheap time to repair an air leak is when it is small, accessible, and sitting in your yard. The expensive time is when the truck decides your schedule no longer matters. Rule number 14. Your daily inspection is the cheapest diagnostic tool you own. This is where a lot of drivers roll their eyes. Pre-trip. We have all heard it, but I am not talking about mindlessly walking around the truck because somebody wrote a checklist. I am talking about learning what normal looks like. Look underneath before you move. New fluid spot? Investigate it. Look at coolant level. Look at hoses. Look at belts. Look at wiring you can safely see. Look at tires. Look at suspension components. Look at lights. Listen when the engine starts. Does it crank differently? Idle differently? Sound different? Smell different? A good owner-operator develops a relationship with the machine. That sounds sentimental. It is not. It is pattern recognition. You know what the truck usually sounds like. You know where the gauges usually sit. You know how frequently it regenerates. You know how it normally shifts. And because you know normal, abnormal stands out early. That is where the money is. Rule number 15. Stop waiting for a small problem to become worth fixing. This is probably the biggest one. A driver notices a coolant seep. I'll watch it. A small boost leak. I'll get it next service. Battery starting to crank a little slower. It still starts. Uneven tire wear. I've got another month in them. A warning that disappears after restarting the truck. Probably nothing. That thinking is how one small repair invites 3 friends. Mechanical problems compound. A coolant leak can become overheating. A charging issue can leave you stranded. A small air leak can become a big one. An alignment issue can ruin tires. A bad connection can cause secondary electrical faults. Your best chance of reaching 500,000 miles without a devastating repair is not finding some magical maintenance trick at 499,000. It is refusing to ignore the truck at 120,000, and 210,000, and 330,000, and 440,000. That is the secret. It is boring, and boring maintenance is incredibly profitable. Now let me give you the Brad Stanley version of a 500,000-mile Cascadia plan. First, know exactly which engine, transmission, and after-treatment system your truck has. Second, keep maintenance records, not in your head, written down or stored digitally. Oil services, filters, coolant, transmission, differentials, after-treatment work, battery replacements, alignments, repairs. If something starts happening more frequently, your records will show the pattern. Third, build a maintenance reserve into your operating cost. Preventative work stops feeling expensive when the money was already assigned to the truck. And fourth, never confuse avoiding the mechanic with winning. I want you to save money. I want you to understand your own truck. I want you to catch simple problems yourself. But there are times when a qualified diesel technician with the correct diagnostic equipment is worth every dollar. If you have low oil pressure, persistent overheating, serious braking problems, repeated after-treatment faults, abnormal engine noises, fuel contamination, or a warning associated with an obvious drivability problem, do not keep experimenting until the inexpensive problem becomes expensive. DIY knowledge should make you smarter about repairs, not reckless about them. So, can a Freightliner Cascadia reach 500,000 miles without major trouble? Absolutely. Many working trucks accumulate serious mileage, but the truck that gets there in good condition usually did not arrive by accident. Correct oil, clean fuel, healthy coolant, proper airflow, stable electrical power, maintained after-treatment, good tires, good alignment, proper driveline service, reasonable driving, low unnecessary idle time, and an owner who fixes the $15 warning before it turns into the $5,000 lesson. That is the entire philosophy. There is no miracle bottle, there is no one maintenance hack. There are hundreds of small decisions, and by the time your odometer reaches 500,000, those decisions have either been protecting your truck or slowly collecting interest against you. I'm Brad Stanley, and this is Big Rig Wisdom. If you drive a Cascadia, tell me in the comments what year it is, which engine you have, and how many miles are on it right now. I especially want to hear from the drivers already past 500,000. What failed? What surprisingly never failed? And what maintenance habit do you believe made the biggest difference? Because some of the best truck knowledge in America never came out of an owner's manual. It came from drivers who already paid for the lesson. Subscribe to Big Rig Wisdom if you want practical diesel maintenance, owner-operator advice, used truck buying guides, engine comparisons, and old-school mechanic knowledge that helps you understand what is happening underneath that hood before somebody hands you a repair estimate. And in the next video, I am going after the maintenance mistakes that can quietly shorten the life of a Detroit DD15. If you own a Cascadia, you are going to want to see that one before your next service.